Okay.
You stand behind them, Fanny?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
So I'm really happy to have Rae here, who's one of my most brilliant friends. And she and I spent many years together teaching at UCSD. And so we have a very tumultuous academic-y background together. And Rae is not what you would think from her poems. She's actually very steady, with a marriage that lasts forever, and grandchildren, and she's a wonderful teacher and a very loyal friend. Years ago, she was part of the language school of poetry. Probably many of you knew that already, but it still sort of permeates her thinking and her work because it was such an intense moment in American poetry and thinking about it. And it was sort of like being an atheist who tries to save God from awful believers. And so it was a very powerful time when Rae and her people were working in those questions. There were a lot of ugly certainties in America then. It was coming out of Vietnam in the beginning. And so what we find now is the dregs of that, those positions, and the person who has kept the essence of those insights that came in those years is Rae. She's a very logical person, a reader of physics, and a taker of risks. And her poems could be likened to propositions, axioms, and hypotheses. In this sense, she's a most modern poet, but also more so an original. Her mind has gone ahead of the events and draws conclusions while still running. She must have 1,000 poems written like Dickinson, and many of them have the same wit, puns, and underlying connections in the words. Above all, the natural world catches her eye and holds it for a long time so she can elicit, it would seem, an understanding of how the plant and petals have words that are perfect for what they are. She tickles the keyboard. Erotic underpinnings are hidden in forms nature takes. My friend Rae is a wonderful friend. She gets the joke.
Did I move this down? Yeah. I love that, Fanny. That almost made me tear up. I'm crying. Okay. So is the mic good?
You can take your mask off if you feel comfortable.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, now I feel comfortable. Okay. I have a lot of Post-its, but the poems aren't that long. So don't be afraid. So this is my new book, Finalists. Hang on. Domestic as an empty shopping cart parked on a ledge above a freeway. Artifactual as an acorn barnacle. What is the purpose of barnacles? People ask the internet. Barnacles are filter feeders. They're fish tank decor. A plaque of barnacles on top of a toilet. This cluster of brittle puckers clinging to its old idea These craters striped pale lavender for some unlikely eye. Vultures. I wrote this when I went to Miami, to the Miami Book Fair, and I was on a panel with some other poets. I can't really remember who. Oh, Josh Charles was one of them. And two guys, I don't remember who they were. And someone in the audience asked us something about authenticity, how we got authentic or something like that, how we stayed authentic, I don't know. And so then I went last, and so I was thinking all the time about what I thought about this idea of authenticity. And I decided that, for me, I mean, I knew what they meant, but I decided that the word was really problematic, actually, because it's got all of this, I mean, it's got roots in authority and in provenance and in ownership and, you know, authenticating and that sort of thing. So that's what I said when it got to be my turn. And actually, Joe's like that. Is that how you say Joe's? How do you say her name?
I will ask
I'll do
her
it.
when she reads here
Okay.
next month. She's coming here.
Okay, all right, well, tell her hi for me.
Okay.
Okay, anyway, this starts out with something about that. Vultures. A product can be authentic, an object cannot. This presents a problem. An identity can be authentic, an experience cannot. How was your sleep experience? Asks Marriott. Praise or blame is the only legitimate response. Vultures wheel over Miami. A sign that appears day after day is not a sign. The library boasts a fine collection of books written in private languages. Identity is made of select experiences. When you are genuinely sick, the leaves recede and the flickering holes between them come forward. Not angels, but unnamed objects. Who's who? Yeats saw a fish as a mysterious girl, which made the world seem more fuckable. He wanted to follow her home after he killed her, but of course did not. Here's the thing, says the brand spokesmodel, waving her Diet Coke and sounding beleaguered yet defiant. Just do you. Threat landscape. Some of my poems are in parts, and this has 2 parts, but I don't usually stop and read the numbers. Anyway, I just make a little pause, but this is the case here. Threat landscape. Life began with general irritability, then developed lateral suppression, the ability to boost some signals while tamping others down. Attention. Creating a high contrast world with exaggerated peaks and troughs. The threat landscape, projected now on screens by paid experts. You're right, Sasha. I forgot. The butterflies are frightening with their abrupt approaches and batty swerves. They mix the outside in. You're right. We don't know what will happen. One of my granddaughters was terrified by the butterfly exhibit at the Science Center in Seattle. That's inspired part of that. Startle reflex. Reflex. I feel like I'm going to have reflex.
Do you need some water?
No.
She has tongues.
I took tons. Anyway, startle reflex. Reflex. That's the funniest. Anyway. Ford's robo-dogs roam the factory floor and enjoy a good belly rub. People are startled to discover that their inner monologues are ghost-written. A sentence that once made sense and now does not appears haunted. Experts are surprised to learn sparrows across North America have changed their tune. Let's just make it to the end. Everyone's riveted by the shock of the disaster victims, the way they search for words. Most of this came from newspapers, you know, not absolutely all of it word for word, but a lot of it, including Ford's robo-dogs. Apparently Ford factories have robo-dogs. The fold. Let us, he said, make man, as if he had to ask someone's permission, even if always only his own. To practice is to repeat what has not yet occurred. We get signals from the future. We're invited to grow by entwining, twinning, being duplicitous. A rose by any other rose is its own paradise of luminous folds. The news. We wanted to tell someone everything, or everyone something, how large and limp the leaves were in the half sun, but what is full sun, finally? We'd been relaxing protections in our sleep again, it seemed. Now we were fewer. Some imagined St. Peter as a special concierge or a supercomputer listening. Did he listen to what he must already know, hearing only ones and zeros, pluses and minuses? Was that at least something? Over and over, first one tall stalk, and then its twin dips westward and recovers. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Surprise, surprise. It began with sensing difference. But since mind is the gate of surprise propped open, we can stop and think. If comparisons are sketchy, what about contrasts? Since mind is the gate of surprise propped open, we get bored. What's the good of that? Since mind is the gate of surprise propped open, a roller coaster has been placed between those painted lips. I keep rolling this lozenge around on my tongue. Where's the good in it? First I was cold and now I'm hot. On growth. Dressed all in plastic, which means oil, we're bright-eyed, scrambling for the colored cubes spilled on the rug's polymer. Inside each is a tiny car. When we can't unscrew the tops, we cry for help. We're optimists. To sleep is to fall into belief. Airing even our worst suspicions may be pleasurable. We are carried, buoyed. In sleep, the body can heal itself, grow larger. Creatures that never wake can sprout a whole new limb, a tail. This may be wrong. Riddance. Okay, we've rendered the rendition. How often? When we were trying, well, I'm going to start over because I did that wrong. We were talking about practicing earlier and I said I hadn't. Riddance. Okay, we've rendered the rendition. How often? What were we trying to get rid of? We exposed the homeless character of desire to the weather. Shall we talk about the weather? Worsening 4 times faster than expected, 8 times, until the joy of pattern recognition kicks in, until the crest of the next ridge is what remains of division. This book is actually, well, was originally going to be 2 books, so it has 2 sections, Threat Landscape, and then this section is called Finalists. And the first poem in it, Crescendo, is actually the same poem twice with the same title except 1 and 2. And the difference between the 2 is the first one I wrote in a kind of talky, loose, for me at least, style, casual almost, and then the second one is tightened up. So anyway, Crescendo, the light, 1. 3 o'clock, about 2 hours of light left, glorious on the ornamental pear. Some leaves grizzled dark red. The large leaves of what we think is mock orange, yellow again, as when they first appeared, and will soon fall. I'll miss you so much when you're gone. I'd miss you if I looked away, or if a cloud covered the sun. I miss this moment as it goes on happening. The light, too. That little tree, leaves now grizzled gold and dark red, is past all transaction, stiff in crescendo, praising no one. The gold my people raised the world for, cashed out there. I don't know if it was literally my people, but people sort of like me. Lions. Lion taming exists to make us think that the ferocity of lions is fake. Or lion taming exists to parody our sense of human mastery over the earth. Of course, any thought is a shot in the dark. But a poem exists to contain it. Now a thought is a watched pot. On melancholy, what I thought of as a pleasant lingering on things, tender, without the flurried rush of hope, Freud called melancholia, a state in which a person grieves for a loss she is unable to identify. What I experienced as a general attunement, wishing only to continue, a suspended attitude, Freud described as narcissistic identification with the object that becomes a substitute for the erotic cathexis. And what if, in my case, there are multiple objects? Whatever appears outside this window, the dangling threads of the weeping cypress. How I would love to make the elegant, dismissive gestures of those long fingers beside the white phone lines plunging almost straight down, or up, taut, catching occasional rays of sun, like a child's idea of a message. Well, maybe I'll throw one in since I skipped one. This next one is called Cheating, and I got it from basically walking around with the twin granddaughters near Halloween, but just from them in general, actually. Cheating. I want to give you the questions in advance. This will seem silly, but listen, there isn't much time. Everything depends on it. What is the same? What is different? This may be extra hard for twins. Which is larger? Which is more important? What does the cat in the picture know? Is he sad because the frog is gone? As you go on, the questions will become more challenging. Do you really love the same inflatable black cat? Why that one? Who loved it first? Too much information. Deers, the backwards facing S, a decoration in the iron rail, was here when I came, with its extra curlicues at each end, and a miniature version of itself, like a fetus, affixed to its middle. I'm telling you more, perhaps, than you need to know. The sun on the rail's inner curves is a private matter, something like love, despite the roar of the nearby freeway. I mix love up with safety. It's hard to come by good ideas while California goes up in flames. It's hard to have a new idea when temps in LA rival those in Iran. I can't say anything more original than gender reveal party sparks massive wildfire in tender dry forest. You never know what will matter next. Pack everything. I got, and this is in Western Washington, which is never supposed to burn because it's like a rainforest, but there was a fire in Eastern Washington, like there always is this time of year, and it came over the crest of the Cascades and started coming down the western side of the mountains. So, you know, the smoke was terrible. Ash was literally falling. And then I was home alone without a car. This is more than you need to know. And I got an alert on my phone that said, "Evacuate, go now!" Exclamation. I was going, what? And I walked outside to see if there was actually a fire at the end of the block. I didn't see anything. I didn't see any neighbors running, but I didn't see any neighbors at all. But I was a little worried. I'm trying to get Chuck on the phone saying, "Bring the car back." But then like 3 minutes later, I got another notice that said, "Never mind, mistake." More like 5 minutes later. Okay, lapse. To keep my abridgment consistent with its previous iterations and with that of others is a nearly all-consuming task, allowing just a thin trickle of the new to be processed, or so I'm told. But those whose recaps self-contradict hardly seem better informed. When intention stutters, it is not a pleasant flicker. Anyone can be hypnotized by blinking lights, but one can also find oneself mesmerized by nothing, while deep inside, in bones and gut, the thoughts think themselves. Panicle. This, actually, Fanny has a book called Entangled Life that I have too, and I think the beginning of this poem may have something to do with that book. Panicle. The hope is that the fungal mycelium exchange messages through a vast underground network. The hope is that we're not alone. A small black spider cautiously explores the wet plastic trash bag. A woman somewhere across the street says, "I don't know," and laughs. The hope is in the facts. Buzzing, a bee slams time and again against a blue-black wall. The hope is that the universe is formed of an infinite number of Y-shaped prongs, rocking stiffly in the wind, spitting out lilac panicles. Panicles are a flower shaped like a column. And it's, that's not, I do get things from science, but nobody, as far as I know, has speculated that the universe might be formed of an infinite number of Y-shaped prongs. But they do say things like that are, shaped like a saddle. That was years ago. But I keep up with this stuff, and there's a lot of it. So I was just, looking at the lilac out my window and writing this, and oh, the universe. I mean, it makes sense. The universe could be that. Yeah. And this is called Poem. The blackberry at the end of the largest of 3 clear plastic compartments is there, you think, to say. I mean, I do. Alone in the smeared plastic on the glass coffee table. The berry is so sweet and so cold. Its cup not yet, on the way to a landfill, followed by seagulls. I'm going to take this little jacket I'm working up a sweat here. Thanks. All right, well that is most of what I'm going to read, but I also have about 5 new poems here that I thought I would throw in. Okay. Most of them from my new book, but some, forthcoming, but some even newer than that. Fortune. It could have started like this. My mother took me to fabric shops when I was a kid. I would wander through the tall bolts, dazed, reading fortunes in the colors. White, paper mache of the mock orange flower on its many stems. Lavender as an afterthought, necrotic, carried interest. Ochre, like sunset in LA, like dehydration. The popular mauve gray, which blends indifference with innocence. One is chosen above her sisters. One tells a troll to eat his brothers. An imp gives one the power to spin yellow into patronage. One frills a frill, again and again, no in order, no as if. Obviously, I've been reading too many fairy tales. These are the lessons they teach, basically. This is a new thing that I wrote after trying to sell old furniture to an antique store, but it turns out now they only want, well, mid-century modern. The big pine sags, heavy with cones in the slightly smoky air. The mid-century pretzel chair, with its slender, twisted legs, is once more popular. An off-rhyme goes a long way if you aren't going anywhere. The marshmallow sofa is starting to look almost familiar. What supports us is flimsy. We've come back around to that idea. Freeze tag. This one's a little grim, but in spring, when the firethorn pimples with hard buds. In summer, when the rose drops its rosy discards. In fall, when the trees go up in flames. In winter, when the kitsch fantasies of shelter go on sale. In spring, when, full of toxins, we're interred in today's clothes. And this, also grim, is something that I wrote after I realized, just by listening to her play, that the twins had been exposed to an active shooter drill in pre-K, pre-K. And so this is, the best lines in this are by one of them, Renee. Anyway. Drills. Renee tells the toy train to shelter in place and pulls onto a siding. What passes for nowhere? The mind before a thought forms? a desert landscape, hawks drifting above. She says that soap bubbles try to hide on chairs and then suddenly pop. Let me see how much more I can read. Okay. Read three more things. This is, all right. This was, the first half is inspired by Trump. Magazines. Perfect parade balloon goblin with his permanent smear, his incantation. I know what you want. You want things to get real. You want to go there, bad. Thaw chimneys blow trapped carbon through weakened permafrost. Remember permanents, stiff bouffants, white ladies in rows thumbing magazines. I was hoping there that people would realize that magazines is also a place where you put ammunition and guns. Anyway, two more. This also, well, I won't say anything about it. Sides. They fight about which sides of the compartment the heart and star bandages should be on until one cries for help. In the beginning, chaos sloshed around uneasily. In the other beginning was the word. This is the long side, just so you know, one notes, and it goes downhill from there, goes south, as we used to say, cruelly. And finally, Here I Go is the name of this. This is going to be the first poem in my forthcoming book, 2.5 years from now or whatever. Here I Go. Here I Go was, no, Here I Go Again. All right, I'll start that again. Here I Go Again was a rock anthem once, crowds on their feet, mouthing the words. There's no way to explain how faultlessly I want to write about how pointless all this is. Nothing I can point to but the gesture itself, the way it comes to seem anachronistic, spectral, like this ongoing attempt to catalog the world by latching each thing to the last memory it calls up. Nothing recalls the new Cat 6 haboob, but I'm hard to discourage. When a branch lays out 5 like an old card trick, identical white orchids, 3-petaled white sails spread, ready to go, each with a small bat face in the middle. Okay, that's it. I guess we might do a Q&A if anyone actually has a pressing question. I know it's hot in here, but let's take a couple. Yes?
Fleetwood Mac?
What?
Fleetwood Mac?
Oh yeah, right, yeah. Okay, any other questions?
I can ask another question.
No, we don't have to have questions because I'm hot. I bet you're hot too. And I'm sure this is a bookstore, so just
Oh yeah, buy these books.
No question.
And I mean, if somebody really has a question, but it's hard to ask questions about poetry. It really is. So, one last chance. Anyone have a question? Okay, no questions. But if somebody wants to buy a book, then I will be happy to sign it. I'll sit somewhere, like probably right there, and that's.
I have a question. Where are the books?
The books are for sale over here by the cash register. Thank you so much for coming. Let's give it a There are books for sale. Rae will be signing books, as she said. If you could all please move your chairs up against the wall, we'd be grateful.
give you some of the chairs back and give you the.
It is not.